In this video, I am going to be taking you through all of the decks that I have worked with in the past couple of months, what my practice has been looking like, the books I've been reaching for, all that good stuff. So let us get into it. I'm going to begin with the decks that I have used for my monthly daily, as I call it, my monthly daily tarot practice. This is my daily card pull. I choose a deck every astrological season, actually every zodiac season. And as you can see, Aries season, for which I chose the Pharoxa Tarot, was not off to such a great I was going to say such a great start, but it's not the start of this book. It is the start of the year, according to if that's how you measure it. But the Pharoxa Tarot, the Enchanted Pharoxa, as you can see from the mostly empty calendar pages for this one, I really wasn't feeling this, and I don't know exactly why that was. The reason I chose this deck for Aries season as my daily pull was because in my decks for Aries video, I said that this felt like an Aries deck, but I couldn't quite articulate why. And I was hoping that working with it a little bit, pulling a card a day, reading the guidebook every day for Aries season would give me that answer. And as you can see, it gave me no answer because I barely touched it. I did about a week of daily pulls, and if I'm being honest with you, I'm pretty sure I kind of did these in batches. Although this is a daily practice, I don't actually get in this every single day. I get in it most days, but a lot of days I'm kind of playing catch up a little bit. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous deck. I really like MJ Cullinane decks. I've got quite a handful of her decks, and I, generally speaking, really enjoy them. But I think maybe it was the guidebook for this one. I really like the guidebook for the Guardian of the Night Tarot. That was my first deck of hers. And like I said, I've got a few others. But this was just not really doing very much for me. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's how she speaks about these, they're fae, but these more human-like figures than in the Guardian of the Night Tarot. That's just an animal deck. Same with the Raven's Dream, obviously a Raven deck. And I think maybe I just don't, it doesn't click for me so much when she's talking about closer to human figures and closer to human like dynamics and stuff. So maybe that was the issue. Maybe it was just I just wasn't feeling it. But I'm kind of disappointed, not in this deck specifically, but disappointed in my practice with this deck for sure. Um, so it's left me on a bit of a, or it's left it on a bit of a sour note almost. And that's a shame because now I've had this like not so great experience where I just wasn't really reaching for it to the point where I was doing this in like a few batches and then I just didn't fill it out for the rest of Aries season because I wasn't really enjoying it. And it's hard not to feel a little bit of a way about the deck because of that. But I think maybe it's just not suited for a daily draw. Maybe this is one that I like more in spreads with multiple cards at a time. I don't know. I could muse this out loud forever. I could ponder this out loud forever, but I'm not going to because that would be a very long video. So that was the Enchanted Pharoxa Tarot, which was my Aries daily draw. Not off to a super strong start. Moving on to Taurus season, much more successfully, aside from the fact that I cut my calendar short. So I didn't do a full month with the next one, but that was because of an error in counting. I worked with the Gil Tarot in Taurus season because, again, I thought this felt like a Taurus deck. So I decided to pull it for Taurus season. I have got to say, I think I did a really good job of matching the backs to the watercolour that I do. The Enchanted Pharoxa Tarot, I tried to match the watercolour that I did to the colour scheme of the back of the decks. I've got that like smoky, dark grey blue. I've got that olivey green. I've got that orangey red in the dates and the numbers. And I think I did a really good job with the Gil Tarot as well, with its blue and the green and then the gold in the borders from the backs. But anyway, the Gil Tarot was my daily pull for Taurus season. I really like this deck. I really like the artwork. I think the mages and the court cards in particular, the minors are also really cool. They are kind of pippy, but they're more focused on the numerology rather than pip arrangement that you might see in like a Marseille tarot. As a daily draw deck, it was not the greatest because the guidebook, the little like book that comes with the deck, is a little bit hit or miss. I think there is a longer guidebook that you can get, but I don't have it. But I think maybe I'd have a better time with that. But then again, the deck is very, as you can see from the back, it's very influenced, structured around the Kabbalah, which is not something I work with. So I'm not sure that the full size guidebook would be that much of a benefit to me if I really use it. But regardless of all that, this is a deck that I really like. I was really glad to give it some playtime on my desk. I haven't really reached for this in a long time. That star is just beautiful. So that was the Guild Tarot for Taurus season, and now it is Gemini. I have yet to do the stamping in my planner, but I am working with the Tarot Volatile for Gemini season, and I believe this also was a deck that I pulled out as being a Gemini deck in my Decks for Gemini video, which went up last week, I believe. And I am thrilled to be working with this deck. If you've been on this channel for any length of time, you probably know that this is a deck I really thoroughly enjoy. I really like the Tarot Volatile. It's one of my favorites. It feels like it just talks to me. So the Tarot Volatile is a deck with a lot of cards because it comes with some additional cards, some alternate cards. You can also buy an expansion, which I have, and the assemblage of cards that I'm using this month for my daily draw is quite chunky. I essentially have a double major arcana and an additional court card because I have a princess in here as well as a page, and they are kind of the same court position, but they are described differently in the big guidebook. So I've decided to keep them both in because at the end of the day, this daily draw practice that I do is essentially an exercise in reading guidebooks because I love a good guidebook. So I have a princess as well as a page in every court. So each court is 5 cards. I have a double major arcana. So for instance, the mirror and the sun are both card 19, and they have their own entries in the guidebook. I've got chaos here, which is a 0 card. I've got all sorts going on, truly all sorts going on. So it's a really chunky deck. The cardstock is just delicious. So even though this is, it's a 94 card deck. There's another princess. It's a 94 card deck if I've done my maths right, but it still shuffles really well because the cardstock is so good. I can overhand this, I can riffle shuffle 94 cards. It's glorious. There we go. We've got a princess and a page of the same suit, and I've decided to keep both in. So this is being, that's not a good sentence. Try again. This is so far, I'm enjoying this experience, this deck experience, because I get to see some cool cards. I get to see some cool alternates, and you'll see so far this Gemini season, I've pulled a lot of mages. I am 8 days in, and so far 5 of the cards have been mages, and several of them have been the alternate mages. I had Dream instead of the Star, Misery Collector instead of Death, and Temptation instead of the Devil. I'm just loving this. The guidebook is also so good because for each of the alternate cards, it goes into the little details in the background and what's different about the card. The sun was a card that I pulled the other day, and it talked about how we've got Eros, we've got Persephone here in the background. The guidebook for this is one of my favorite kinds of guidebook because it really talks about all of the artistic choices and points out the little elements of the background and explains why they're all there. It is just such a good deck. I also have Torment, so I've got 3 devils because this is 15. Temptation is the one I pulled the other day, and I know that there's a straightforward devil card in here as well. So that's even more than a double major arcana. I've got at least 95 cards in here, and I think it's fantastic. I'm pretty sure there are 3 death cards as well. Like, it's just so very cool, and I thoroughly have been enjoying this deck. I think this has broken the streak of like a little bit of ambivalence towards my daily pulls, because what did I have before for Axa? This was the Circle of Doors tarot, which I love and adore. So that was great. For Exo, I wasn't really feeling. And the Guild Tarot was like fine, but I was not upset that I missed a week of pulling a card from the Guild Tarot because the guidebook's like mediocre. So that is the Tarot Volatile. That is my current daily draw for Gemini season. I am enjoying it very, very much. I have a whole mess of decks on my desk. I think what I'm going to do is talk about my Tarot Lab decks and then kind of mop up the rest and let you know what else I used. So the Tarot Lab is what I run over on Patreon. In the fledglings tier, we have a different theme every month. Dive into what that theme looks like in tarot, how we can play and experiment with that in tarot. I share resources and ideas for experiments. I do live streams every month as well for some like study with me time. And in April, the theme was reversals. So there were two primary decks and then also I suppose technically it's a tertiary deck, but it was sort of a bonus. So for reversals in April, the main decks that I used in my Tarot Lab experiments were the Deleted World Tarot and the Medieval Feathers. And the reason that I used these for the reversals theme is probably quite obvious. It's because they both are decks with keywords for the upright and the reversed meaning, like built straight into the card. So they are kind of obvious choices to my eye for doing reversal readings with. And this was really interesting. Reading with reversals was a really interesting month because I don't typically read with reversals. It's not something I include purposefully. I don't tend to shuffle reversals into my decks. I more sort of consider whether a reversed meaning of the card makes sense, but really I don't think of upright and reversed meanings as being separate. It's all a spectrum of meanings of the cards, and I just interpret it in a way that makes sense for the reading and for the cards that I've pulled. But in trying out reversals, I did have some fun with using these decks with the upright and the reversed mixed in together so I could actually pull some reversals and interpret them, I guess, naturally, interpret them as they come up. So these were both really good decks for that. So those were my two main decks for reversals in April. And then I also did pull out the Darkwood Tarot for my reversals month a little bit. It's a shadow deck is how it's designed. It's intended to be a deck that's good for shadow work or a deck that portrays that shadow side of the cards. And one of the ways that a person could read reversals is to read them as the shadow meaning of that card. And also I remembered how much I really like this deck. It's got a few really good depictions in it. Like I think this Two of Swords is so good. And then the Six of Pentacles in here is one of my favorites as well. And also I revisited the guidebook for this. Oh, the Fool and the Fool. And in the guidebook for this, we have the sort of explanation of the card and the meaning and the shadow meaning. So I did pull this out, particularly in the Tarot Lab live sessions that I do over on Patreon. I pulled this out, had to play with it. So it was fun to revisit this too. So that was reversals for April. And then in May, we've been doing Marseille for May, which is something I have done in my personal practice for a few years. And this year brought over to Patreon. So the two decks that I ended up using this month were the Squid Cake Marseille and the Gay Marseille. And honestly, don't they just they look so good together. The colours are just delicious. We've got these cute pink edges and then I coloured the edges of the Gay Marseille to match the backs. And I love these decks. And also I've been really, really loving using Marseille. I feel like something's clicked a little bit for me this year. This is the third year in a row that I've done Marseille for May with myself. Well, this year it was also with my patrons. But this is the third year in a row that I have put a bit of a focus on Marseille decks during May, tried to study the system, done some readings, like open reading style Marseille, and I feel like something has really clicked this year, which is really nice. I've been really enjoying reading the shapes, reading the patterns. I think it also helps that this year I have the Gay Marseille, which I think is particularly good because as you can see in the minors, we've got all these additional flourishes, additional imagery to give you a bit more of like a clue to what's happening in the Marseille card, because of course they are just pips. And I've just been really enjoying it. I've been having the best time. I think I'm going to keep these out for a little bit and see how I go with them. I don't think I'm no longer intimidated by the Tarot de Marseille, which is nice. That's really good, and I'm really pleased. So go me. I've been loving the Marseille in my practice this month. I think before I go further with the other decks that I've been using, I am going to chat through some of the books that I've been using, because a lot of them are to do with reversals and Marseille, because I do some research for these tarot labs, and then of course I dive into my book collection during the month while I'm doing some study, doing some practice. So for April's reversals, I know there were a few books dedicated to reading reversals out there, but I don't have any. There's a chapter in The Living Tarot by T. Susan Chang, which is about reversals and includes a whole bunch of ways that you can read a reversed card. So there's this whole list of different ways, and this is more of a workbook, so there's some exercises of how to interpret reverse cards. So I really liked this was a really good resource for figuring out reversals, because like I say, reversals isn't something I typically use in my practice. I don't have a lot of preconceptions about how to read with reversals. And then also I jumped into Tarot for Yourself, which is another workbook. This is Mary K. Greer, and there are a few pages and a few methods for reading with reversed cards. So here there's 13 different ways that you could read a reversal. So these were both handy resources for my reversals tarot lab. And then during May with Marseille for May, I have been really leaning on the Gay Marseille guidebook and Tarot the Open Reading by Yov Ben-Dov in particular. These have both been really good. The Gay Marseille, because I just really enjoy Charlie Claire Burgess's writing. I really enjoy what they have to say. There's also some spreads in here, which actually I don't love as Marseille spreads, because I've been playing with the open reading style, but I do like these spreads in and of themselves. Each card does talk about I was going to say physicality, but I suppose I mean composition of each card, which I found really helpful. And then Tarot the Open Reading, I've been working my way through this. You can see I've tabbed different pages. I read and reread the opening section. I highlighted a bunch of stuff. I underlined a bunch of stuff. Also, at the back of this book, chapter 11, additional spreads, it goes into how to read the cards, how to lay them out and read them, which I have found really interesting. And actually, now I think about it, I also did dig into The Way of Tarot by Alejandro Jodorowsky, and at the back here there's a whole bunch of basically experiments that you can do, what I would term experiments that you can do with the cards, different methods to play with the cards. So I did dig into this for the tarot lab for some of the experiments, and also just in my own personal practice, different techniques that you can try out, different methods for reading the cards. I have not read this whole thing. I actually haven't read the bulk of either of these books about the card interpretations, because I've just been focusing on an open style reading and getting to grips with the pips. So those and the Gay Marseille have been my main resources for this month. And then I have also got Tarot on Earth by Tom Benjamin, which I have also flipped through on occasion. I haven't been working through this as a guidebook, which is what it is. I just really like the way he writes, that it's kind of essay style in some sections. There's these interludes, which I've been enjoying reading. So that's also been on my desk this May. So we've talked about my daily draws in my tarot journal, my themes for April and May with reversals and the Marseille. By the way, if you want to do some tarot astrology, join us on Patreon for June's Tarot Lab, which is going to be about integrating astrology into the tarot, looking at the astrological associations and personalizing spreads and meanings according to your own birth chart and your own interpretations of astrology. It's going to be loads of fun. I'm really excited. So if that sounds interesting, do come check us out. There's a link in the description. But looking back over the last couple of months, I'm going to now rapid fire through every other deck that I have used. Some of them significantly more than others. I'm going to begin with these three. So the Klimt Tarot, the Tarot del Fuego, and the Crystal Visions Tarot. And the reason I'm looking at these all at the same time is because these have been kind of grab and go reads. I've taken the Tarot del Fuego out and about with me quite a lot. I've used the Crystal Visions here when I've basically needed cards like a reference for something. And same with the Klimt Tarot. It's mainly been when I've been at my desk. Especially when I've been like planning spreads or thinking about the Tarot Lab or like mapping out ideas with myself. I just want some cards as like a placeholder almost. And so these two, the Klimt and the Crystal Visions, have been largely what I've been grabbing for that purpose. And then the Tarot del Fuego has been out and about with me a lot. I've been taking it, out and about with me. And so when I've been out with my partner, out for a drink or whatever, I might pull some cards, and it's often been this deck. More recently, also, the Squid Cake has been really good for that because it's a dinky little thing and it's got a guidebook in there. So I've taken this out with me as well. I've not done anything too deep with these decks in the last few months, is I guess what I'm saying. They've been handy. They've been handy. We'll leave it there. The Herb Crafters Tarot I have reached for I think maybe only one like bigger reading. I've not been very consistent this last couple of months, especially in May, probably because I've been doing Marseille, so I haven't really been working with anything else all too much. But I did use this for it must have been my Taurus new moon reading. I know I did this for one of my moon readings, and it would make sense that it was for Taurus. And I love this deck. I really love this deck. I really like it as a new moon deck that works quite well. Like it's outdoorsy, it's fresh, it feels right for that kind of new start, new moon energy. So I love this. I love the guidebook. Like I say, I only used it for that one reading recently, but it reminded me how much I love it. And sometimes it's just like that. Sometimes we're not doing a lot of readings, and sometimes I really focus on a couple of decks and they get a lot of use, and sometimes it's more like little and often, and I'm using a larger handful of decks but they only see like one reading each, which was the case recently with the Herb Crafters, but I'm okay with that. In a similar vein, I just used the Lilith Tarot here for my, not Scorpio, for my Gemini new moon reading. That video is on Patreon if you want to see my new moon spread and how I pulled that together. But I love this deck so much. I always do. And it feels like a Gemini deck. It was in my Gemini decks video, so it made sense to pull this out for my Gemini new moon reading. And I really love this deck. I really enjoy this deck so much. I think this is going to get a lot of playtime in the next month because, like I said, we're doing tarot and astrology in the Tarot Lab, and this has the astrological glyphs on the cards, so it's a good one for that. But it was an interesting reading. It was an interesting reading for this new moon, and I definitely got some good connections out of it. So that was the Lilither, which is never too far from my desk. But again, it was only the one reading with this recently. And then I've also got the Bonefire Tarot, which is a bit of an ongoing favorite for me, mainly because I really like the guidebook. And I'm going to be so honest with you, I wrote down in the list that I keep in my tarot journal, I wrote down that I used this in April. I can't currently remember exactly what for. Maybe it was like an Aries new moon. That would make sense. That's probably what I did. But yeah, I've been spreading my readings out over a lot of decks, and so I don't really remember what I got out of this. But I know I did use it. So that's not to say anything about this deck. Don't let that reflect badly on this deck. I do really enjoy this. I just used it a couple of months ago and haven't touched it since. And this one's actually, it's been put away in like storage at the moment because I've had a reshuffle of my space and where I store things, and I am trialing having most of my decks kind of packed away and not super accessible to make space for other things mostly. All of that to say, I am glad that I got some playtime with this. Like I said, not super in depth, not super ongoing, but I think that's just the season of my tarot practice that I'm in, is that instead of focusing on a few decks, although I say that I did focus on a few decks because I was using the Marseille, but that feels like it's a different style of reading. I don't do structured spreads with the Marseille. I've been reading them open style, so that's just been where my attention has been. And then it's really mostly been for my new moon, full moon readings, and then a couple of others here and there that I've been using other decks. And this was one of them. There we have it. And then finally, I was using this pair of decks slightly more frequently than any of the others. So this is the Pink Sugar Oracle and the Phantom Deluxe Edition, which I did a video. I've done a video on both of these actually. I did an Oracle thoughts on my Oracle practice update where I showed off the Pink Sugar Oracle because this is the opposite to the kind of Oracle deck I would usually go for, but I love it so much anyway. And then I did a walkthrough and a review on the Phantom Deluxe because they are funding this edition on Kickstarter as we speak. So go check that out. I've been really liking this pairing. I think the colours worked really well. It's just been fun. I've just been really enjoying this. I know that I've also liked this with something else, but I can't remember off the top of my head what that was. But yeah, the Phantom, it gives me She-Ra vibes, so that's just fun. And then this deck is fun, this Oracle, because it's pink, it's shiny. Like, it's just been a really nice pairing. I've just liked it. I've just had a good time using these cards, and I've done a kind of daily, not really a question, pull an oracle card, pull a tarot card or two, and create a message out of that, and I've enjoyed it. It's been a really nice pairing. It's not been the deepest, most profound insights, but my daily pulls never are, so that's fine. I really love the Pink Sugar Oracle. I think it's so good. I go watch the video that I made if you want to hear all my thoughts about it, but it really is not my usual style of Oracle deck, but I have found it so far to be like so valuable already. So really been enjoying that. And then the Phantom it's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but it's a really fun Rider-Waite-Smith clone, and the colors are just gorgeous. So that is, I think, the final decks I wanted to talk about today. Yes, and there's one more book that I briefly want to mention, and then you'll be all caught up on my practice recently. So the final book I want to mention actually doesn't quite fit in frame, but this is one that I have been reading, not for any particular practice. The other books were specific to reversals and Marseille. This is one that is just new to my collection. Drea Bloom sent me her latest book, Tarot for the Soul, a collection of therapeutic activities, and I am slowly but surely working my way through the different sections. It is full of activities, journal prompts, things to do with your deck that aren't just reading the cards, which is something that I love to do. I love to play with my cards. I love to use them for things other than a reading. I've been learning so much from this book. A lot of this is new or at least unfamiliar to me, so it's been really interesting on that front, and it's just been really cool to see how you can use the tarot cards in so many different ways. So I've been enjoying this. It's a very chunky book, so I expect it will stay on my currently reading stack for quite some time. But I wanted to give it a mention because it has been on my desk recently. So that is everything. That is all the decks I've been reading with, all the books that I've been reading, all the resources that I've been using for reversals in Marseille for the Tarot Lab. Like I said, we're doing astrology in tarot during June, so do come join us. It's going to be fun. I think my practice has felt a little bit disjointed, particularly in this last month, because I've been focusing on Marseille. So my kind of typical practice I've not been using Rider-Waite-Smith decks a lot, basically, is what I'm saying. And that's felt kind of odd, not bad, just odd. Like showing you all these decks and being like, oh, I've only done one reading with this deck, or I've only been using this deck as a reference. Like, it just feels odd. It's unusual, but not a bad thing. And I've definitely really enjoyed reading with Marseille decks. I'm going to keep these two out on my desk, probably keep trying some open readings because I feel like it's clicked, and I've been really enjoying reading the pips. So it's been a lot of fun. But that is the last couple of months in my practice. Let me know what you've been up to. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the decks that I've been using and all that good stuff. If you made it this far, give me a pink emoji to go with the the cute Marseille decks that I've been using, let me know you made it all the way to the end. But I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for spending some time with me today. If you want to see more from me, like I said, my Patreon link is in the description, along with a link to my Etsy store. I hope you've enjoyed. Give me a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.